Welcome to Arabella Gingerie, the melody teller. Tonight, we step into a realm where heaven trembles, where faith flickers like a dying flame, and where even the ancient gods may fall into darkness. Listen closely, for this is the story of devotion, temptation, and a single fragile flame that dares to stand against the ruin of all things. Now, let the melody begin. Once, long ago, within the mirror world fashioned by the goddess of rainbows in the celestial lands of Suvarnabhumi, there dwelt a divine maiden in the heaven of Jatut Maharashika. She was a celestial being whose sacred charge was the tending of candles, the lighting of flame for every rite of offering performed within the shrine of devotion. She was a woman who possessed hair black as obsidian, threaded with strands of silver that fell in cascades to the very earth beneath her feet. Upon her head, she wore a golden crown adorned with 4 twin-hued feathers of exquisite craft, each pair carved and arranged alternately in deep midnight black and pure unblemished white, set to the left and right of her coronet with solemn grace. Her amber eyes glowed with the warmth of candlelight, soft and luminous as a flame at rest. Beneath robes of white embroidered with golden thread, the gracious maiden held her front pair of arms clasped together in composed and reverent devotion, while her rear pair cradled a small candlestick with careful, tender hands. All the pure of heart called her the Candelabra Princess. Through the pale rose of dawn, through the brightness of midday, through the amber hush of dusk, she kept her vigil faithfully, never once faltering in her charge. Every night when the light of the full moon fell across the sacred courtyard, she would walk barefoot upon cold stone floors, her 4 slender arms trailing like vines that yearned and reached for the light of dawn, chanting the song of faith. The Candelabra Princess tended the flame and guarded this shrine of devotion through ages immeasurable, and all who dwelt within the heavens held her dear. On every night of the full moon, when the silver light descended upon the great courtyard of the temple, the Candelabra Princess would perform the ritual dance of offering to heaven and earth as the ancient customs demanded. There feet against marble stone, cold and still, her right hands rose, fingers curving with grace, to the height of her head, while her left pair lowered close to her body, like a flame bowing toward the earth before lifting its face to the sky. The first position of this sacred dance bore the name Lighting the Lamp for Heaven, a pose passed down since the first breath of creation. Her bare feet turned upon the stone, arms drifted and swayed like vines reaching for the light of dawn. Her gaze, brimming with faith, lifted toward the heavens above. Her lips moved in rhythm, singing the ancient mantras that every dancer of this rite must weave into melody. Each time she curled her fingers in a graceful flourish, the candle flames surrounding the shrine would flutter and bow in answer, as though the sacred fire itself was alive, bending and swaying as a loyal subject before its queen. The celestial hosts, every one of them, fell still and silent when they witnessed this most holy of sacred arts. Even the winds that swept across the peak of Mount Sumeru ceased, pausing to listen to the song of faith that the Candelabra Princess sang through the tips of her fingers and the soft soles of her feet. The celestials and divine maidens of Chatu Maharajika wept tears of joy every time they witnessed this rite, for the dance of the Candelabra Princess was far more than a performance to delight observers. It was a true conversation with heaven and earth, with the living nature of the world itself. Whenever the Candelabra Princess dances, all of heaven grows brighter, the celestial maidens would say to one another. And this was no mere poetic fancy. For every time the lower pair of her arms rose and curved in the final graceful flourish, the position called the lotus greeting the dawn, and her upper pair pressed together in reverence and bowed before heaven and earth, every candle flame in the great shrine would blaze bright and brilliant, piercing the darkness for one shining instant before settling back to its gentle rest. As though heaven itself had sent a sign, "I have heard your prayer." And yet, the world was a cruel and merciless thing. In the 6th tier of heaven, Paranimitavasavati, the highest and most exalted of all the celestial realms, there remained another woman. Her name was Rati, goddess of divine desire, sovereign over the dominion of passion and all sensual longing. Her face was carved as if from a finest jade, flawless, arresting, breathtaking. Her skin was the deep green of malachite, beautiful and undying, yet veiled beneath it lurked malice and a festering, seething spite. Her eyes, sharp and deadly, the color of poison green, shot their light like darting tongues of flame that licked at the very chambers of the heart. And deep within those eyes burned the lamp of desire, hungering to pierce the hearts of all living things and bring them to ruin. Her hair blazed crimson as bloodied scarlet lacquer, bold and startling against the heavenly expanse. Each strand fell in a river to the very floor of the earth. Upon her head she wore a golden diadem set with twin ornaments of emerald, proud and commanding in their place. Beneath her crimson robes, seductive, plunging, daring the hem, was carved with elaborate golden embroidery of breathtaking artistry. Arm guards of malachite gleamed with golden fire. A silk scarf of deep green billowed and snapped like a blaze of deadly flame, consuming the face of the earth. And yet, beneath all that darkness, there remained one thing that no chronicle and no pure soul had ever known. Turn back the wheel of time to before the celestial maiden of Paranimitavasavati had twisted and warped into what she now was. Rati had once descended from her station, slipping down to the heaven of Jatut Maharachika on a night of the full moon. She had hidden her face behind the shadow of a great stone pillar of the shrine, secretly listening to the song of faith, secretly watching the sacred dance that the Candelabra princess sang through the tips of her fingers and the soles of her feet. She remembered it well, even now, what she had felt in that night. It was as though drops from a cool, clear stream had fallen and flowed through the 4 chambers of a heart that had been parched and shattered for numberless ages. The candle flames had swayed and bowed to the grace of the 4-armed maiden, and in that brief span of time, the goddess of desire had felt something she had lost long, long ago. Something without a name, and yet it ached, it tormented, it carved deeper than any blade when it was gone. Faith. Ah, she had once possessed it, had once held it before the mire of desire swallowed her spirit whole, until not even a grain of dust remained. And that was the thing this woman could not bear. She could not bear it, that a girl of low station from the world below should possess what she herself had lost. She could not bear it, that a single feeble candle flame could pierce her eyes and her soul more painfully than 1,000 swords combined. She could not bear it, that she herself was a goddess of the highest heaven, yet within she was more hollow and empty than in hatred. Hatred beyond all measure. If only she could crush it, If only she could trample and burn that light to cinders and obliterate it entirely. Perhaps the grief gnawing at the four chambers of her heart might intent and perish with it. And so it was that the goddess of desire descended, with the intent to lead all things to their ruin. As time turned and Rati stepped down into the realm below, seeking to lure the celestial hosts into the revels of excess, she did not rely on words alone. In the center of what had once been a sacred throne room, the dark green light from her very body spread and coiled like smoke. The scent of vernal desire drifted through the air until every celestial being breathed it in. Then Rati began to dance. The movements of Rati were nothing like the gentle, compassionate dance of a merciful princess. They were a blaze that deliberately scorched the blood to boiling. Her hips swayed like the slow, deliberate curve of a wave. Her arms coiled and drifted like a serpent poised to strike. Her scarlet scarf snapped and billowed. The tips of her long fingers traced patterns of corruption through the air. "All of you assembled here!" rang out a voice deep and resonant as a bell of glass and gold. "Have you ever truly asked yourselves, why must you forever dedicate body and soul to heaven and earth? Faith that goes without a backward glance, or the pleasure that stands here before you? Which would you choose?" She flung her silk scarf upward, and it dissolved into 1,000 rose petals, raining down like fallen stars. Every sensation they touched upon the skin kindled desire until it blazed as though one had drunk of divine nectar. The celestial maiden who had once carved her name as chief disciple of the Shrine of Offering rose first to follow, then a second, then a third. Enraptured, intoxicated, round and round it went without ceasing. The throne room became a carnival of madness. Laughter rang out, goblets clashed, and garments were stripped and cast aside. The scent of intoxication and desire flooded in, tangling and coiling about every soul within the clamor and the revelry, rising to drown out the sound of the holy mantras until nothing of them remained. Only the candle flames in the Shrine of Offering still flickered faintly in the distance, as though weeping in silence, while every celestial being in the lower heavens forgot their sacred charge of guarding the world, and forgot entirely the rites of devotion to heaven and earth. Witnessing this, the Candelabra princess could not remain still. She stepped into the throne room, thick and clamorous with the sound of revelry. Her pure white robe swept long upon the stone floor, embroidered in gold and midnight black. A belt of ornate golden work adorned her waist. Her obsidian hair, threaded with silver, swept wide across the floor. Her golden crown, with its twin-hued feathers, caught the candlelight and flashed it back in warm flickers. Her amber eyes fixed upon the vile spectacle before her, her front arms clasped in reverent devotion before her heart, while her rear arms held the small candlestick, its golden flame blazing bright in that moment. Her step was silent amid the carnival of desire, yet it stilled every living thing. The revels ceased in an instant, for the sacred flame in the palms of the four-armed girl blazed outward and flooded the whole of the throne room with its light. Rati stopped dancing. She fixed her deadly green gaze upon the young maiden who had entered. The corner of her mouth curved into a mocking smile. "Oh, Candle Princess." The voice was honeyed and drawn out, yet it cut and stabbed deeper than any blade. "You have brought your feeble little flame to interrupt the festivities of mine?" The princess did not waver. She raised the lamp and pressed it to the 4 chambers of her heart, then spoke in a voice clear as a crystal bell. Though this lamp should flicker to a single flame, though every lamp in all the world should be extinguished, it shall burn undimmed and unsurrendered. For this light is a sacred vow. I dance to pay reverence to heaven and earth, to worship that which is holy and sublime, not to dance in order to beguile the soul into forgetting all virtue and all goodness. The throne room fell into absolute silence. Every intoxicated celestial stopped short and listened. In that silence, Rati began to clap. Slow, deliberate. That sound rang out like a crack of thunder. She stepped down from her dais, her scarlet scarf billowing like the flame of dark sorcery, and danced once more while war drums beat and rolled. The faith you clutch unseen by any eye, you light 1,000 lamps, yet who is it you long for in that solitude? I am the one who brings joy and gladness, who floods all sorrow with pleasure and bliss. Heaven and earth have never listened, but I listen. I hear every single heart. Waves of green-tinged power surged outward. The celestial assembly roared with rapturous assent. The Candelabra princess's hands trembled, but she held the candlestick firm and would not let its flame go out. You speak as though those desires were something real. The princess's voice shook. But a flower with no roots will wither when the season turns, my lady. Rati advanced, her breath burning like wind from the mouth of a hell. How could your pathetic little candle outshine the pleasures I bestow upon them? Look and see, not one of them longs for your dull and tiresome rituals any longer. Snap! Rati raised her palm, flicked one finger. Flash! The flame in all 4 hands of the Candelabra princess went out in an instant. Darkness swallowed the 4 chambers of her heart. The amber eyes that had shone with the warmth of a lamp turned dim. The twin-hued feathers upon her crown seemed to droop and fold like wings about to fall. Laughter, sharp as knives, cut at her from all sides. Not a single soul cast her so much as a glance. Go back and keep watch over your empty shrine, little princess. Grief, anguish, pain. The 4-armed maiden could only bow her head and receive that mockery, then turned and walked from the clamouring throne room. Every step was heavy as iron chains. No one looked after her. No voice called her back. When the woman whose obsidian hair was threaded with silver, whose golden crown bore its twin-hued feathers, returned to the shrine of offering, she found in her heart that this place was no longer as it had once been. Dust and desolation, grime and grey covered the stone courtyard where once the footsteps of the faithful had been countless. Dry leaves scattered and drifted everywhere. Only she remained, keeping watch alone. Day after day, she mourned the days that had passed. Of the 3 candle flames that had once blazed bright upon the altar, 2 had now gone dark, extinguished and lost. Only one last lamp remained, guttering like the final breath of one who was near death. she sank to the floor, all 4 hands pressed together before that small and trembling flame. "O heaven, O earth," her voice fell soft as a breath, "I remain. I shall light this candle in offering, even if no one looks upon me, even if no one remembers. I shall not abandon this charge, not until both body and soul cease and are no more." Tears fell upon the altar stone. "Ah." A sound of sorrow tried to rise into song, but the note caught and lodged within her throat. Then, in that very instant, a merely gone blazed up once more. Faint, but warm, enough for her to know that heaven and earth had not abandoned her. That night, she curled beside the altar, cradling the last lamp and not tell it go. But one day, amid the dust and ruin of the forsaken celestial shrine, a sound rang out, steady, heavy footfalls, confident and resonant. A celestial warrior appeared from the threshold. His name was Mangala, son of the 9-planet god, and he stepped through the desolation. His powerful frame was clad in golden armor and regalia fit for a warrior of the divine realm, carved with elaborate golden works of breathtaking artistry. Upon his head, he wore an ornament with trailing white fabric. His hair was golden brown, radiant as the light of stars, arranged with quiet, dignified pride. His golden cloak swept and billowed like the curl of a wave behind him. And most notably of all, his right hand gripped the hilt of the sword Devridi, mighty and terrible in its power. Its blade gleamed with the reflected radiance of all 9 celestial planets at once. His left hand bore the shield called Navad Haravajra, the shield of the 9 star diamonds, its face inscribed with the image of all 9 stellar signs, each studded with gems of every hue that blazed and gleamed with living starlight. His face was stern and resolute as he strode through the darkness. Then, in that moment, the sharp eyes of Mangala fell upon the Candelabra princess. The obsidian hair streaked with silver that had once been so elegant lay spread across the stone floor, tangled with dust. All 4 arms wrapped around the last lamp, clasping it to her heart in anguish. Yet the amber eyes, brimming with tears, still shone with a purity and beauty beyond all power of words to say. A celestial woman of incomparable beauty, yet heavy with grief beyond all measure. Mangala knelt beside her and asked her everything, listening until he understood it all. When he had heard the whole of it, the young warrior sat in silence for a time. His face did not wear an expression of pity. It wore something far more dangerous, fury, long and carefully contained, straining against every restraint. Both fists clenched until his knuckles went white. "They never deserved your light," he said at last, his voice low and heavy as stone. The Candelabra princess shook her head. "It is not so. My light was not lit for those who are deserving. My light burns because it is what I am." Mangala looked at her for a long time. The warrior who had watched 1,000,000 stars upon the celestial sky now felt that the small candle flame in the princess's hands shone brighter than any star he had ever seen. "Then," he said, and knelt before her, "I pledge my body and my word. I will be the fortress that guards this flame. Whatever storm may come to batter it, I will stand and take it upon myself." The Candelabra princess's eyes filled with tears. "You need not kneel before me. I am only a keeper of candles, not an exalted goddess, my lord." "I am not kneeling before an exalted goddess," Mangala answered. The corner of his firm mouth curved into the first smile since he had walked through this shrine's door. "I kneel before one who, though all of heaven might forsake her, has never forsaken heaven." That night, Mangala lit the second candle upon the altar with his own hands. 2 flames in the silent shrine felt warmer than 1,000 flames in Rati's throne room. And from that night on, Mangala never strayed from the shrine of offering again. At the break of dawn, when the first light of day fell upon the stone courtyard, the warrior prince would wake before the sky had brightened. The sword Devredi swept through the air again and again as he trained, until divine sweat ran freely. The Candelabra princess would often watch him from behind one of the shrine's great pillars, her amber eyes following every sharp and lethal movement. And sometimes, when the blade sliced through the air and sent off sparks of 9-planet starfire, the corner of her mouth would soften into a faint smile. In the evenings, Mangala would sit and watch her light the candles in devotion to heaven and earth. He said very little, only sat as still as rock, his grave eyes fixed upon the candle flame that flickered and bowed to the touch of her fingers. Once, the Candelabra princess asked him, "Are you not weary, my lord, of sitting and watching the same ritual over and over again?" Mangala was quiet for a moment. "The stars follow the same path across the heavens every night, but I have never tired of looking up at them." She opened her mouth to say something in reply, then lowered her face, hiding her smile behind the fall of her dark hair. And once, on a night of the full moon, when silver light lay across the desolate shrine, the Candelabra princess woke in the deep of the night to find the last candle on the altar nearly gone. But when she rushed to reach it, she found Mangala already sitting before the altar, his broad warrior's hand cupped around the small candlestick, shielding the flame from the wind with his palm, keeping vigil over the fire so it would not die. Mayaveen roared. His tremendous body buckled and fell. The darkness that had wrapped his form dissolved like fog burned away by morning light. Yet even in the moment of his defeat, those burning amber eyes remained cold, and the great mouth curved into one last, slow, savage smile. "I will remember this day," he said, his voice that had once shaken the sky now falling quiet, yet somehow more frightening for it. "And I will wait, and wait, in the darkness beneath the world. I will wait until you forget again, and on that day, I will return." He swept his gaze over every celestial assembled. "And you know full well, that day will come." The immense body sank into the fracture in the floor of heaven. Darkness consumed him piece by piece. But the quiet sound of his laughter lingered long after his form had vanished. The cracks in the floor of heaven slowly knit closed, but one long scar remained, running across the great courtyard of the shrine, as though to remind every soul what has happened once may happen again. When the war was ended, silence returned. All the pure souls of heaven sank down and knelt in reverence and gratitude before Mangala, who had led the celestial host through the demon army to victory. But the warrior prince only sheathed the sword Devridadi and shook his head. "If you would offer praise," he said, his voice steady and sure, "then offer it to the Candelabra princess who stands before you." He turned to look at her, the four-armed young woman in nothing but white robes smeared with dust, standing amid the ruins of the battlefield, her slender body still upright, the small candlestick still flickering in her hands. She is the one who called your hearts back to themselves. She is the one who lit the way when every soul was sinking into darkness. Without her to be the lamp that pointed the true way forward, my sword would have meant nothing, and you could never have defended your heaven as you did. Every soul in heaven bowed low before the young woman who held the candle, the woman who had been a small, still light, who had guided faith and goodness back into the hearts of the celestial host and brought them home again. From that day forward, the pure souls of heaven never once faltered in their devotion and sacred charge. The 3 candles upon the altar of the shrine of offering blazed bright and full again. The great courtyard returned to its ancient sanctity as it had been since the first moment of creation. And on every night of the full moon, the sacred chanting of the devotional rites rang out and resonated through all of heaven once more. But the scar upon the floor of heaven remained, stretching long a reminder that faith left without tending will always begin to fade. As for the malachite-skinned woman who had lured the celestial host into intoxication, Rati was sentenced and cast down from the heavens, plummeting to the mortal world below. Her form that had once blazed with emerald light was now tarnished and pale. She sat weeping at the edge of heaven. Before Rati was sent into exile among the mortals, the Candelabra princess came to her for the last time. Rati sat at the rim of heaven. Her form that had once blazed with malachite light was now dull and dim. Her red silk scarf was torn and caked with dust. "Have you come to mock me?" Rati said, without raising her eyes. The Candelabra princess shook her head and sat down beside her. "I came to light a candle for you." Rati started. She looked up with wide, bewildered eyes. The gaze that had once been cold and empty was full of confusion. "You light a candle for the one who extinguished yours?" "I light candles for everyone," the Candelabra princess replied gently. "Even for those who have not yet understood why they need the light." Rati studied her for a long time. Then a soft laugh came from her, not the laughter of scorn, just the sound of exhaustion and something that came close to sorrow. "Do you know," Rati said quietly, "once, before I became what I am now, I used to love watching you dance in the rites of offering. I'll tell you that much." The Candelabra princess smiled faintly. She left the small candle burning beside Rati, then rose and walked away. The flame wavered in the wind, but it did not go out. Rati sat watching the small fire for a long time, then picked it up and cupped it in both hands. Perhaps it was the first time in thousands of ages that the eyes of the goddess of desire held any light other than cold emptiness. She said nothing more, only held the small candlestick close and stepped down into the mortal world, carrying the one flame the Candelabra princess had given her as a final gift. A chant rose and drifted, resonant and clear, a lament for a spirit long lost, and a song of homecoming carved into the 4 chambers of the heart that the Candelabra princess murmured softly to herself. "Through the gates of the sacred land, your spirit shall be led into the great hall beyond. There the Lady of the Lamp shall guide you into the pavilion when body and heart alike have come to their appointed time. Within the shrine of offering, we shall meet again as we were meant to be, as servants of the earth and sky, beneath the stars of heaven that belong to us all." When those verses were sung and done, the Candelabra princess returned to her charge once more. The light that guided the way for heaven, and the woman who lit the lamp, and the warrior prince of the 9 planets walked side by side, hand in hand, for as long as eternity endures. Keeping faith, keeping the flame alight, keeping love steadfast until the end of all things. Tell me, dear listener, if you were standing there, would you choose the warmth of fleeting desire, or guard a lonely light that no one sees? And if the world turned away from you, would your flame still remain? Perhaps the answer has always been within your own heart. Rest now. Let the echoes of this tale cradle your thoughts, and may your dreams be gentle. Good night,